Princess Celestine. Basil, Brucite, Thyme, and Anates mourned the loss of their friend once they arrived at the forgotten cathedral. Celestine went through the motions of mourning as well, but she only cared to comfort Basil. She projected an unwavering illusion of a grieving princess in front of her uncaring deadpan. Jasper worked diligently to set up a comfortable area for everyone to sleep, and he showed no sign of resentment to be the only one doing so. Myocaster and Guarantor commiserated their lost traveling companions privately. Her eye curled around Basil's palm, returned to the form of a salamander. Although Celestine knew much about elementals, she was ignorant of their exact transformative capabilities and limitations. Already she had learned much from observing her eye. She had known that elementals could adopt the forms of creatures of their element, but the number of different figures and the time related to each change was new. It was something to ponder while the others resolved their selfish indulgences. They think the loss of a single friend is painful. Even though I like Teleost and his quirky aspects, my grief over his death is barely a grain of sand compared to my monstrous burden of misery. It's negligible by comparison. They know nothing of devastation. But it's a start for Basil to become acquainted with the feeling. Celestine hadn't played a part in Teleost's death, but she was glad it moved Basil as much as it had. She had been intending to kill Teleost after they had grown even closer. Behind her illusory mask, she smirked to herself. I now have a decision to make. Should I compound his suffering with the loss of another friend straight away? Or give him time to heal before ripping the wound open once more? She would think on it. Once Basil was exposed as the Archspawn, perhaps the monarchs would take care of the others on their own. She might not need to risk her own culpability at all. At least Watercress is gone, but I'll proceed with caution so long as mistrustful people travel with us. Namely Jasper, possibly Anates. She would not risk removing either of the skilled fighters unless she believed they intended to turn Basil's heart against her. He hadn't been invested enough yet for that. It would come, but not yet. For now, she waited. Better not wait too long. I have no idea where Vontame's gotten off to, but I'm confident she's planning something. Celestine listened with a forced, comforting smile and concerned eyes when they recounted the good times they all had together. My favorite time was when we went fishing, Brucite said. Anates rubbed the side of his arm, and empathy was written across her face. Basil half-heartedly smirked at the comment. It would be. Personally, the most intense memory that keeps coming back is right after I destroyed his tumor. I'll never forget that look in his eyes. I doubt I've seen anyone so grateful. He gave me 4 of the items I own. Thyme's eyes were swollen and red. His nostrils flared uncontrollably, and his clutched hands trembled. No one knew what to say to that. I'm going to miss sparring with him the most, Anates said. He was a slow learner in that regard, but he was learning. He fought valiantly when he faced the Vahantry member, Brucite said. He even used a few things you taught him. She closed her eyes, blinking slowly. I'm glad. I even miss him being a brat, Brucite said fondly. He was such an arrogant shit. The others mustered a low chuckle. It wasn't his fault, Basil said. No, I know. Looking back on it, I never thought I'd miss the kid. But the moment that the Vahantry impaled him, my heart fell through my butt. I clung on to hope that if we could have just gotten him to Basil, he would have been fixed, Brucite said. He would have died on the way. Even if he made it, I couldn't have treated him. The only one who could have saved him was Master Watercress, Basil said. And he was likely overloaded with patients dealing with the same issue. Brucite rubbed his hand against his face, partially concealing his broken expression. I shouldn't have left him to die. I should have helped. I should have fought the Vahantry with him. The others would have come for us if we had stayed, Thyme said sagely. They would have killed all 3 of us. I wish I was there. I would have killed them. When this is over, I'll hunt them all down, Anates said, flexing her fingers in a manner reminiscent of claws. I would not, Celestine interjected. Anates gave her a death glare. The others seemed concerned about her opinion. She said, I would show mercy. You never know what someone has gone through or why someone is doing what they are doing. Perhaps it is not their fault. Perhaps they are desperate people finding solace in a self-made community the only way they can. Basil placed a tentative hand on hers. It's noble of you to think that way, but it's not helping to say that right now. Everyone else stared in mild disgust at her. She backed down. She had the apparition appear embarrassed, although she felt no such sentiment. Fine by me. It's not as if I'm not accustomed to being ostracized continuously. After a long pause, Anate said, I'm going to stand vigil tonight.
Don't be stupid. Teleos' body isn't even here,
Jasper called from where he worked on the other side of the dilapidated chamber.
You need to rest. Vigil? Brusite asked.
Anates pressed her lips into a line.
Carry stuff?
Brusite asked, flicking his eyes between Anates and Jasper. Anates bobbed her head. Rising to her feet from the dusty stone floor and facing Jasper, she said, Someone should stand watch anyway. Celestine thought Anates would start shaking if she didn't do something.
I will, Jasper said. I don't need as much sleep as the rest of you. I can go for a couple days without it and be fine.
I'm not sleeping tonight. Anates marched over and stared him down. Reluctantly, he agreed.
Fine, sleep on the ferry tomorrow then. But when we get to Wojet, I need you at your best.
I will be. She turned back to the group and returned to Brusite's side. Gently, Brusite stroked her cheek with his thumb after she laid her head against his shoulder.
I wish I could stay up with you, but fatigue's taking me, he whispered into her hair.
She shook her head against him. You should sleep. You all should. Time shook his head in protest, but she sent him a look that said not to argue with her. Basil nodded. He had been unaccustomed to that much cardiac strain, but he had handled it well, especially after he cast a healing spell on himself. Even so, he looked like he was as ready to find unconsciousness as much as Brusite was. I will help set up the sleeping arrangements. Celestine crossed the short distance to set out the blankets. Jasper stared at her with dead eyes, but it was an improvement over the looks she had previously received from everyone else.
I wish we could have given Teleos a proper burial, at least, Brusite said.
Even if we did, his ghost probably wouldn't have been around to witness it, Anate said. If I were him, I wouldn't stick around the place I died. Where do you think he is? Back home? Basil ruminated. How fast can ghosts move? Would it be possible he's already back into the cemetery? Anates asked. Basil shook his head. Master Watercress would know, but I never paid much attention when he spoke of phantasmal concerns. Based on the teachings of the various angelus services, they can move quickly, but usually not before they've mastered their ectoform, Time said. What? Basil asked. Once a ghost has found peace, it can go into a hibernation state. Rotations may pass like that, while it waits for its respective spawn to die, and all the others to be judged by that spawn too. Ghosts usually spend more time in that form after everyone they knew in life has passed on or has stopped coming to visit them. Time explained confidently.
I hope his soul finds peace soon then, Brusite said, and Anates and Basil and Time nodded in agreement.
Usually, only ghosts that can't accept death are stuck in their corporeal forms. If they are particularly bent on revenge against someone, like their murderer, they may devolve into a specter, though.
I can't help but think how many specters and poltergeists will come from this, Brusite said.
When he received a questioning glance from Basil, he explained,
Poltergeists are also unable to find peace in death and haunt a location rather than a person until they disappear.
I didn't know there were so many types of ghosts, Basil said. There are also wraiths. In past ages, demons possessed ghosts of monarchs or those who had wronged them in life. They must have been targeted specifically for that, and I doubt any demon has a personal issue with Teleos. The opposite is a wisp, an angel that occupies a ghost. Again, that's also rare. Teleos shouldn't have an issue finding his ectoform if that's how he wants to be. Given that he sacrificed himself, he was likely well on his way to accepting the end, Basil said. Celestine finished setting up the bedding. She observed Jasper to mirror his actions again, but he grabbed a bow, climbed the flight of stairs to the upper landing, and left the cathedral. Celestine would explore the lower levels of the cathedral instead. She picked up a torch, lit it from one of the others, and brought it down with her. Though she had access to her repertoire of illusory curses, her vision was still bound by human eyesight, and if someone followed her, she wouldn't risk discovery by illumination illusions. Back with the others, Brusite sang a lamentation dedicated to their fallen friend. His tone's melancholy echo fit the feeling of the forsaken cathedral. Celestine ignored the racket and ventured on. The lower floors were as expected. She lit the torches in each of the sconces along the halls as she explored them. The cathedral had been erected in dedication to Asiel and Leilila. Dusty carvings of discolored white doves and elder deer littered everything from the wood trim to the friezes. Celestine rolled her eyes at the ancient pious craftsmanship.
The ceilings were one strike away from collapsing. Is it safe to sleep within the walls? Not that she was at risk, but she cared about maintaining Basil's well-being for now. It was funny how her feelings had developed in that regard. Before becoming Celestine, Coserai hadn't felt anything towards Basil romantically. He was just a coddled child. But since overtaking Celestine's body, the princess's hormonal reactions toward him saturated her consciousness. If she took over another body in the future, she would take the emotional side effect into consideration. Feeling a tingling of romantic interest was an unexpectedly sweet reprieve in her ocean of torment. Still, it made progressing a relationship with Basil awkward. Princess Celestine had kissed Basil back in Trelia, but there had been little physical contact between them since. It would have been simple for her to feign a relationship if she had been entirely unattached, but her developing feelings complicated her motivations. We're both our spawn after all. We could be together. Well, be damned to the accursed ruins. I can change my course any time I wish, if it comes to that. And who knows? Maybe my prophecy from Lemniscate will prove different from my expectations. She wanted to restart physical contact again soon, and the time they would have together on the road would be the perfect opportunity. She wouldn't have to pretend to attend to royal duties or subject herself to obligatory meetings with the major generals any longer. But she couldn't force it too soon. Basil needed time to grieve and feel the full weight of the sorrow before she distracted him with amorous hope. She found another exit to the cathedral on a lower level. For safety, she barred the door closed from the inside. She doubted anyone would come, but there was a chance that other survivors might have made it this far out, intending to reach the ferry. If they did, she didn't want a knife in her back because Anates guarded the wrong entrance. On Celestine's way back up to the sleeping level, Basil intercepted her. She was glad she hadn't cast her illuminations after all. "I was coming to look for you," he said. "I was heading to bed." She rubbed one of her eyes to support the claim and dropped the illusion before her face. She wanted Basil to witness her raw emotion. "I want to apologize for up there." Basil stood in her path. "What do you mean?" "Everyone processes grief in different ways, and Teleos' passing isn't easy for anyone. I know the others are channeling their sadness into anger, and they've got to process that before they'll feel better. They shouldn't have attacked you for having a big heart and desiring to show mercy during trying times. It's remarkably admirable. It's one of the traits I like most about you." "Thank you," she said, blushing. He took her hand comfortingly and swung their arms back and forth. She savored how her heart rushed at his touch. It was a small gesture, but it thrilled her nonetheless. She knew there would be days when it would be commonplace to hold his hand, but for now, she appreciated the anticipation. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Who was worthy of saving?" "I've never thought about it. Do you have an opinion?" "Yes, but I would like to hear yours first." He huffed. "I suppose anyone who tries to do right by their fellow neighbor, as Asiel taught. Even if someone tries to do right and fails, in the end, they should be entitled to find spiritual peace." "That is interesting." "What do you think?" "Everyone deserves salvation." He cocked his head, waiting for her to explain her rationale. "Most people see themselves as the hero of their own story, as they should. Most people try to help their family and friends. Most people gravitate towards what makes them happy and comfortable and avoid what causes them pain and harm." "Okay." "Those qualities are valid enough for salvation." "But what about those who do not follow those guidelines?" "Then they need help. You are a healer. You must understand how the horrors of this world are perpetuated. In some cases, abuse causes victims to become aggressors. Are they less deserving of redemption when they require aid but do not have access to it, or do not know how to pursue it, even if they wish to fix themselves?" "And if they don't wish to fix themselves?" "Then I fear they've suffered a great deal in their mortal life. Far more than any human should. They require even more assistance." "So you mean everyone. Rapists, murderers, the like." "As painful as it is, yes. As much as our animal instinct compels us to seek revenge for the hurting of our loved ones, human compassion and empathy set us apart from beasts. Rapists and murderers usually rape and murder for a desire for control, revenge, or obsession. Is help not required to mediate all three of those conditions? Do they not stem from traumatic experiences, feelings of isolation and social rejection, and alchemical imbalances?
What about assassins? They kill without those reasons. People do not generally want to kill one another. Something must have gone seriously wrong, either internally or externally, for them to wish to do so. So then, reluctant assassins have been put in a position so desperate that they are willing and capable of doing it. As for assassins feeling compelled to kill, they fit into the first category with murderers. I do not hate people who others view as evil. I see them for what they are, and I pity them for the terrible circumstances that have brought them to such a low point in their humanity. With enough assistance, support, and healing, no one is beyond redemption. You have such a pure heart. A little smile touched the corners of his mouth. She lingered near him in the cathedral's lower hall. Turning to face him, she decided that now was the time. Despite undercutting the misery of Telios' death, she went against her better judgment. She laid a hand on his cheek, looked into his questioning amber eyes, and kissed him lightly. In the halls of her competitors, she took the next step toward winning their game. Although she would have cared more about that ambition if her heart hadn't beat for the first time since the 6th age. Celestine and Basil ascended to the sleeping corridor together. Time was off in a corner, huddled over a set of 3 silver throwing knives that Celestine hadn't recalled seeing prior. Did someone give him those to feel better? Of everyone here, it was probably Brucite. I bet he has gotten sick of Time always borrowing his own blades. Anates consoled Brucite in a different place along the cathedral's tattered floor than Celestine had last seen them. I should have stayed. I didn't even think of it. Guilt is crushing me. Anates held him and whispered comforting words into his ear. Celestine approached the couple hesitantly. Brucite, Telios sacrificed himself for you both to live. The best you can do is appreciate his gift to carry on living, so that one day you can do something that honors his loss. Only through forgiving yourself will you obtain such a feat. Anates' expression was far from warm, but she wasn't glaring any longer. Celestine returned to Basil's side as he picked out which set of blankets he wished to claim. He gave her an approving smile and squeezed her hand. Jasper returned then with dinner, a family of voles and a celestial owl. Myocaster and Guarantor joined the group to eat. Midway through the meal, Anates sat up alert and interrupted the conversation. Something's wrong. Jasper closed his eyes and listened. It's the high combative mage, Master Plume. Celestine considered redirecting Plume away from their chamber, but then had an alternative idea. The rabbit and the goose are next, Time said, concern in his large eyes. Panicked, he scanned their group members. What do we do? Jasper said, There's no need to raise a concern. We escaped the poisoning as she did, and now we have taken refuge in this cathedral. There's nothing suspicious in that. We'll offer her food and see what she wants. Footsteps echoed above them as Plume searched for stairs leading to their lower chamber. They collectively held their breath as she descended toward them. Every single step stretched into the next. Celestine prepared herself for whatever was to come. Once Plume appeared in the opening to the chamber, her gaze shifted directly to Basil. Eyes locked in an intense moment. The others looked between them questioningly. It was time to follow through on Celestine's idea. As Plume was about to speak, Celestine crafted an illusion that only the sorceress could see. She made it look as though Anates was hurling magical curses toward Plume. Since they had no substance to them, Celestine made the curse miss and created illusions of damage to the cathedral walls. No one else saw what Plume saw, so they watched in terror as Plume unleashed her sorcery upon them, apparently unprovoked. Flames flung toward Anates first, but she dodged them deftly. Her eye launched themselves from Basil's pocket and sprung into their elemental form in Plume's attack. Her eye consumed her fire, while the others descended to the levels below. Jasper sent a dangerous warning scowl toward Celestine while they ran. Despite it all, his glowering inspired fresh fear in her. What in Wow's name is going on? Myocaster asked, taking the stairs 2 at a time in his descent. Run! Jasper growled as they weaved through the stone halls. Anates was in front, as she had been the first to flee the room. Then it was Jasper, Basil, Myocaster, Celestine, Time, Brucite, and Guarantor taking the rear. The alignment wasn't to Celestine's liking. She would have much preferred to be in front with Basil, and then staging an attack that would separate them from the rest of the party. but she would simply have to work with what she had. At a minimum, she intended for Basil and her current human body to survive this encounter, so she called out the instructions on how to navigate to the second barred exit. "Follow the lights!" She was pleased she had bothered to light them. However, the light also eliminated their perils. The ceiling cracked and rained mortar dust upon them. It would be a risk manipulating Plume into attacking them again. The weight of the whole cathedral might crash down on all of them, and no number of accursed illusions would save them from that. Plume was racing behind, clearly no longer distracted by her eye. The group was getting close to the door that Celestine had barred from the inside. It would take a moment for Anantes to open it, and each heartbeat would count. There was another set of stairs, and a long hall left before the exit. Behind her, Garantor tripped. Brusite helped him to his feet again, but it had slowed them up. They were then much closer to Plume than the rest of the group. Anantes had reached the door on the other side of the hall and ripped away the barricade. Basil would join her in another dozen heartbeats. Celestine took the risk. Once Plume emerged down the hall, Celestine gave her another vision of a curse flying at her. Reflexively, Plume returned the attack and yanked a supporting pillar out of the ground to defend herself. The cathedral moaned around them, and slowly, chunks of stone began to fall. Larger pieces crashed down. The side walls started to split. Brusite and Garantor struggled to avoid the rocks on the ground and above them. One landed squarely on Garantor's head, and he went down with a thud. Plume was right on them, but Brusite checked on the man anyway. As far as Celestine could tell, Garantor was dead, and Brusite was wasting his time. Hefty sections of ceiling tumbled around them and shattered once they collided with the stone floor. It would be a maze to navigate through the rubble. Anantes had freed the door and turned to find Brusite at the other end of the hall. Her face dropped, and she stared back toward him. Jasper caught her arm. Basil, Thyme, and Myocaster had made it out the door. Celestine was almost out, but Jasper blocked the frame with Anantes in tow. Brusite rose and sprinted again, but so much stone had fallen along the path that he was getting trapped in with Plume. He signed to Anantes. Anantes shook her head and fought against Jasper's grasp. "Come with me!" She broke from the grip and sprinted as far down the corridor as she could. Jasper chased after her into the collapsing building. Brusite signed again, and the entire weight of the cathedral crushed down between them. Before a massive boulder separated the ends of the hall, a contented smile crossed his face. Jasper yanked Anantes toward the exit as the rest of the cathedral collapsed around them. Celestine slipped through the doorway, avoiding injury. Jasper forced Anantes out swiftly after. Falling stones bloodied Jasper and dislocated his arm that hadn't pulled Anantes out of the cathedral. Anantes emerged unscathed, and Celestine assumed that was Vontame's protective blessing at work. "No, let go of me!" Anantes strained against Jasper's hold, desperately trying to re-enter the destroyed hall. Jasper let her go once they were safely outside. She rushed back to the doorway, which had filled with debris. She released a growl which grew into a scream. Once it died, she took a step back from the crumpled structure. The towers of the cathedral were no longer vertical. One was sideways, and the other had crumpled completely. The entire metal sanctuary sagged in on itself. Stones still tumbled in the cathedral settling. "Basil?" Anantes' voice bordered on hysterics. "Can you sense them?" He crept forward with a distraught expression. He cast his diagnostic spell tome. "I can't sense anything alive in there." Tears streamed down her face, and she dropped to her knees. Her arms wrapped around herself, and her grip dug into her skin so tightly her sharpened digits broke through her fingertips and into her biceps. Trickles of blood seeped onto her furs, but her gaze remained transfixed on the ground. Celestine knew the feeling well, trying not to lose one's heart while not losing one's dinner. The sense of internal implosion. Time no longer holding relevance, for only eternal sorrow remained. She was delighted that someone else experienced a fraction of what she carried daily. Jasper said, "I'm going to see what the other entrance looks like." Anantes didn't move. Basil and Myocaster nodded. What are Basil's wings? Sorrowful waves? Raging flames? Condemning sighs? Damn this human body's pathetic sight. Myocaster wasn't handling the loss of Garantor well. Just when there's a semblance of hope for survival, it all gets cursed. Anantes turned a pained, suspicious glance toward Celestine.
Celestine exercised maximum restraint to prevent herself from basking in Anastase's pain until she conjured an illusion of an empathetic expression across her face. Behind it, she sat grinning. To Myocaster, Celestine said, "You are still alive, though, and that is what is important." "If you hadn't filled Brusate's head with thoughts about making Talia's sacrifice count, he'd still be alive too," Anatase spat. Celestine did not reply, and Basil did not come to her rescue. Basil leaned against the stone wall, struggling to support himself. With a deep grimace plastered across his face in the dull moonlight, he looked lost in sorrow. "Good." Celestine considered consoling him, but he had moved away from her to lean against the wall, and she assumed he wanted space. Time sheltered his head under his arms. The new knives he had been training with before Plume's pursuit had dropped into the grass to his side. Fault regarding the prophecy clearly ate away at him. Basil drew himself out of grief long enough to stride over to Time and comfort him. Basil put an arm around his apprentice, but Time did not acknowledge Basil's effort. In silence, they sat together. When Jasper returned, he had the cart in tow with their supplies loaded into it. Her eye jumped onto Basil's shoulder from Jasper's. For Basil, it was probably a small consolation after losing yet another close friend, and possibly his master, on the same day. He put his hand to the elemental's smooth scales. "Thank you," Basil choked out, "for helping us, Harai." Harai's long tongue flicked out and licked Basil's cheek. Basil nodded to Jasper in appreciation. "Now that Jasper's returned, we should get moving. It's not safe to stay here any longer." Jasper gave him a grateful nod. If Jasper had been the one to suggest it, Celestine guessed that Anatase would have fought the idea. Because it came from Basil, she didn't immediately reject it. Although tears still leaked from Anatase's eyes, she wiped them away. Basil went over and extended a hand. She took it and stood, but she had no sign of any other emotion. To Celestine's surprise, Anatase approached Jasper. "The other side was also sealed?" "Yes, you can check for yourself if you'd like. Some of the passageways were untouched, but that one had collapsed from the story above it." Jasper pointed out where he meant. She turned away and prepared for their continuation. "Thanks for the supplies." Jasper did not engage further. "Come, Time," Basil called out to his apprentice, sitting alone in the dark. "We have to move on." Without objection, Time collected his knives, and together they departed.